Hello and welcome to the fifth PowerPoint on Living World. The aim of this PowerPoint is just to explain 6 key characteristics of the rainforest. That's things that make the rainforest different to other types of biome. And also just at the end to give you some help with the questions from the textbook scan. Um, Before I start, have a look at these videos. You can go back and look at these links later on. Excellent video. There's some really good videos out there about rainforest characteristics, as you'd imagine. But this has been done by BBC Teach, so we know it's good. And also, there's a web page here from the Khan Academy, which is just excellent. It really tells you everything you need to know. So here are the 6 key points. Okay, you need to try and learn these. Look at the headlines. So, hot, humid, distinct layers, high biodiversity, poor soils, rapid breakdown. Okay, they're the 6 things we need to try and learn. And what I'm going to do is going to take you a little bit more detail as we go through. So here's the temperature graph, or sorry, the climate graph from the textbook. And it's from Cameroon, which is in Central Africa. If you look carefully, you can see the very high temperatures there. It actually tells you the annual average temperature is 27 degrees. And also you'll notice it tells you that the rainfall is 4,000 millimeters. So the red line, the temperature, notice it's constantly high. It looks like it dips down, doesn't it, a little bit to around about 25 degrees. It may just creep up to 28 degrees. So it's a very narrow, what we call range, the difference between the highest and the lowest temperatures. And certainly it never falls below 25 degrees C. Rainfall does vary a lot more, and this is typical of a rainforest. You tend to have a sort of season where it's wetter and a season when it's drier. But when you look at the total, 4,000 millimeters is still very high. And it's actually twice the annual rainfall of Fort William, which is the wettest town in the UK. So you might think it's wet, if you if you've ever been out that way, Lake District, Scotland, they do get a lot of rain, but nothing like what you get in the rainforest. Now, another aspect here is the layers. All forests have layers. If you go to Thetford Forest or if you go to the New Forest, you'll notice that forests, what the conditions are like on the forest floor are very different to what they are at the tops of the trees. But because rainforest trees are so tall and because the rainforest is so dense, these layers are very distinctive. And one way to think about it is almost like 4 different floors in a shop. Go somewhere like John Lewis, a great big shop in Norwich, and they're built upwards, aren't they? Because they're packing so many different things in that you need those different layers. But of course, it's almost like 4 different shops, isn't it? You think about what you've got in the basement compared to the ground floor, the first floor, etc. Now, another thing to bear in mind is that these trees are very tall, so the emergent layer can be 50 meters high. A characteristic, of course, of the rainforest is the huge biodiversity, very large variety in the different species that we've got. And it's worth bearing in mind that every square meter of the rainforest contains many different species. This is actually an example from India, lots and lots of different things. Don't look too close if you don't like spiders, but you'll see lots of different, not just insects and animals, but plants too. A rather unusual aspect of rainforest is the fact that the soils are very deep. They tend to be red because they've got a lot of iron in them, but they actually lack nutrients. And this is a bit strange because there's so much vegetation there. You think, well, how can that be? How can it be? But there is an explanation which I'm about to go through. It's all down to something called the nutrient cycle. Now, have a look at the red pinkish circles here. These are where these things called nutrients are stored. Now, nutrients, if you like, are a bit like the vitamins that we need. They're the chemicals vital for life. So common ones with plants are nitrogen and phosphorus, for example. And they're actually recycled within the ecosystem. So that's the sort of green boxes is where they're being moved around. So at any one time, you'll find nutrients actually within living things, plants, animals. We've got nutrients within ourselves, of course. On top of the soil, so The tree might have fallen down, or a monkey might have died and just be lying there on the floor. And they'll have nutrients in them, and they'll then be broken down by insects, fungi, and things like that. And there's quite a lot of nutrients normally in the soil as well. Okay, and that's, they're washed down into the soil by rainfall. Now, in the rainforest, there are so many insects and fungi that when the trees fall down, for example, they're actually very, very quickly broken down. So in the UK, for example, when a tree falls down, it may well be still there 2 years later. It'll have rotted down a bit, but it certainly won't have disappeared. Whereas in the rainforest, it would have done, and they get broken down very quickly. And the other thing you notice, if you look at the tree there, you notice that the roots are actually on the surface. They're not actually going down into the soil. And the nutrients are actually taken up by the trees before they get a chance to wash down into the soil. So everything is happening really, really quickly. That's the way to try and remember it. That's why we call it the rapid nutrient cycle. So the nutrients don't get a chance to wash down into the soil. Okay. Right, so here's some helpful questions. The first one is some skills question asking about a climate graph. We did speak a little bit about this in the last lesson. Make sure you describe both the rainfall and the temperature, because climate graphs have both, and you need to be able to describe both. Look at the totals. I've already just told you what the totals are early on. If you go and have a look, describe how much each varies. We call that variance. So what's the difference between the highest and the lowest? The highest rainfall, the lowest rainfall, for example, and the highest and lowest temperature. And do quotes and numbers in your answers. So don't just say the temperatures are constantly high. Actually put some numbers in there to say what the temperatures are. That does make a big difference. Now the other three questions. The first one, bit of a funny question, this one. It says, what is the difference in an ecosystem and a biome? Well, there isn't one in one sense, because a biome is an ecosystem. Okay, so you just need to describe what makes a biome a special ecosystem. Okay, and I'll give you some clues there. The second one, it says, looking at figure 6.1, describe the global distribution of tropical rainforest. Now, again, the last lesson you've done on this, we've gone through that. So just remember, use your lines of latitude. So talk about the equator, if that's where you think, or the Tropic of Cancer, or the Tropic of Capricorn. Use your compass points, north, east, south, and west, okay, when describing the distributions. And also look at where the biggest rainforests are. Give the names of the continents or countries. Are there any continents that don't have rainforest, for example? Which continents has the most rainforest? You put all that together, you have a really good description. And then this last one, suggest why biodiversity is so high in tropical rainforests. There's two things to focus on here. First of all, rainforests have perfect growing conditions. The rainforest has an abundance of both rain and sunlight. And what's really important here is the fact they're constant all year round. So many animals in the UK, for example, many plants in the UK have to adapt to the fact that our winters are cold and dark, and the ground is often frozen. And those three things limit the amount of species that can survive here. But the rainforest, you don't have those limits. Okay, so that means that lots of things can grow. And the other thing is to go back to those layers. Remember the analogy I gave of like John Lewis with all the different floors on there. Okay, that means that for every square meter of forest, there are lots and lots of different places. We call these niches for the plants and animals to find a home. So, for example, if you're a large bird, you probably live in the emergent layer, okay, because you can fly from the tops of trees. You get a really good view, especially if you're like a bird of prey. If you want to see your prey, you can see it really well. Okay. However, if you're just a soldier ant, perfect conditions on the forest floor, lots of things are falling down for you from the trees above, really, really great. Most mammals, and certainly most of the green, is actually in something called the canopy, which we'll talk about more next lesson. So just like floors in a shop, every single layer within that rainforest has like different conditions, and they provide the conditions for lots and lots of different plants and animals to survive. Okay, so finally, we can't do the rainforest, can't we, without an appreciation of just some of the amazing plants and animals that live here. These are three of my favourite. Don't be afraid to let me know, or your teachers know what some of your favourites are. Okay, so I've got the orangutan, the sloth, and the howler monkey. Okay, that's all for now. Speak soon.